Okay, here we go. So guys, one of the problems that I didn't get to go over with you yesterday, but I did put in that video in the filled in notes, was how to write the equation for a parabola, either given specific information about it. In this case, we're actually given a picture with certain information posted on that picture. So based off of what you saw yesterday from the notes that I posted, everybody should be able to do this one, but let's walk through it. It says, write a quadratic function for the given graph. So guys, if you notice, they've given you an extremely important piece of information, which is the vertex. They've also told you another direct point on that line, on that parabola. So the first thing we're going to do is you basically have two formulas. If you want to write the equation of a parabola, you have standard form, y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. The problem with standard form is, though, a, b, and c don't really mean anything. They're not like the vertex or anything like that. A is the only one that actually has true meaning that we use for that pattern. All right, and then you have vertex form. Well, guys, if they gave you the vertex form formula is going to help us tremendously to write the equation. So we're going to start with the vertex form of a parabola. I mean, technically it said function, so you could put f of x instead of y. I probably should have. Okay, so we know the vertex is -1, -2. So we can plug that in for h and k right away. So it should be y equals, or again, f of x, a times, well, guys, would it be x plus 1 or x minus 1 to have an x coordinate at -1? It would be x plus 1, right? It's minus that h, minus -1. So it becomes x plus 1 quantity squared. And then if your y coordinate is -2, it should just be -2. Okay, so ultimately the only thing we're missing to actually have the written parabola or equation is the a value. There's two things you can do to get a, depending on the information. This one is set up nicely for both. They gave you a point that is directly on this parabola. So you know that this point, if he's on the parabola, he has to make your equation true. So you can borrow 0, -1 as an x and a y value that you could plug in for x and y, and then you could solve for a. So I'm going to do that first, just to give you an option. So I'm going to plug 0, -1 in for x and y, and I'm going to solve for a. So that means -1 goes in for y. It equals a times 0 goes in for x. 0 plus 1 squared minus 2. Let's clean it up. -1 equals 0 plus 1 is 1. Squared is 1. 1 times a is a. And then minus 2 is still there. All you got to do to get a by itself is add 2. So a equals 1. So in this case, a is 1. And we should have known that a was a positive number just in the fact that this parabola was opening up. So we know a had to be a positive number. And in this case, it is 1. So all you do is pop it in for the a value right up here where your vertex is already in, and you're good to go. So it's just going to be y equals, or I'm going to switch to f of x to have an actual function, equals, I don't even need to put anything directly in front of my parentheses when a is 1. A is assumed to be 1 when nothing is written in front. Now, the only thing you have to be careful about is on the online homework, sometimes they'll ask you to write it in simplified or standard form, which means you're probably going to have to FOIL this out and combine like terms. And then you have to end in standard form. I'm not going to do that right now just because I don't think we need to waste time showing each other that. All right, another thing you can do is, guys, you know that a parabola is going to climb or, decrease at a specific rate. We have a pattern, right one, left one, down or up, 1a, 3a, 5a. So if you notice, you are at a vertex of -1, and then your next known point is at an x coordinate of 0. So guys, this is 1 unit to the right. The next point is 1 unit to the right, which means the distance you had to go up was 1a. You know that this distance going up is 1a. So you know that 1a is equal to, well, how many did you go up from a y coordinate of -2 to a y coordinate of -1? You went up 1 unit. So you know that 1a has to equal 1 unit because that's how much the parabola went up by on that first movement. Then you just solve for a and you find out that, hey, guess what? A is 1. So that's another thing you can do to find that a value if you don't feel like plugging the known point in. Okay? All right, perfect. Everybody okay? Everybody's good? All right, look at example number 2. We are out of here. All right, this one is a little bit different just based off the information that is given on the graph. We have to write a quadratic function for this graph. So obviously, right away, they didn't give you the vertex. But vertex form is still the best formula for us to get started because it still has the most useful variables in it and the useful information. So we're still going to get started with y equals a times x minus h quantity squared plus k. That'll be our get started formula for the equation. All right, well, a couple things. We're going to need the x coordinate of our vertex for h. We're going to need k, the y coordinate of our vertex, and we're going to need a. I like to start by working through the vertex. It's just you might not be able to get all of that information at once. However, guys, a parabola is symmetric, right? It has this imaginary vertical line, this axis of symmetry, cutting it in half. So if this is the point 3,5 and this is the point -1,5, guys, they both have the same y coordinate. So those are symmetric points. So if those are matching points on either side of your AOS, then what has to be right smack in the middle of them? The vertex. Well, not directly in the middle, I should say, but the x coordinate of your vertex is directly in the middle of those 2 points. So we can at least get the x coordinate of our vertex right now by playing off of what's in the middle of an x coordinate of -1 and an x coordinate of 3. So guys, if you do that, what's in the middle? -1 plus 3, cut it in half. That's 2 divided by 2. That means we have to have an x coordinate of our vertex that is 1. We know our x coordinate of our vertex has to be in the middle, so we know that is 1, right? Well, I can plug 1 in for h. The problem is we don't exactly know what the y coordinate of our vertex is. I mean, I think we can all pretty much safely say it looks like it's -3, but you can't assume that. For all we know, it's a little bit more or a little bit less than -3. So you can't assume that the y coordinate is -3. So if I plug the 1 in for h, I still don't know a and I still don't know k. We can only have one unknown variable. So what we're going to do is look to see if you can get a if you don't know the y coordinate of your vertex yet. And then we'll kind of play off everything to find the missing y coordinate. Well, guys, because this is at x is 1, then this over here would be your 1a, right? You went left 1 and up 1a. The problem is I don't know exactly where I was coming up from to know exactly what 1a was. I do know, though, that if I go left 1, I'm going to go up a distance of 3a. So I do know that from this point to this point, it's a 3a distance. So I do know that 3a has to equal, well, how much did you go up from this dot to that dot? This is 5, this was -1, that's 6 units. You went up 6 units from this dot to this dot. So you know 3a has to equal 6 units. And it's got to be positive because you were going up. And you'll be able to get a is 2. So now if you know a is 2, let's start plugging in. We know the x coordinate is 1, so that'll go in for h. We know a is 2. Let's start plugging that information in. So y equals, we know a is 2, x minus 1 if x is 1, and then squared plus k. So we still don't know the y coordinate of our vertex just because we can't assume. So what we're going to do is, guys, you know 1, 2, 3 points that are officially on this parabola. Pick one of them, plug them in for x and y, we'll solve for k. I'm going with 0, -1 because it's a really easy point to plug in. So I'm just going to pick this point. I could have used this point, I could have used this point, and I could plug them in for y and x, and I'll solve for k. All right, so everybody do that. I'm going 0, -1. If you want to live on the edge and plug in a different point and see that we're still going to get the same y coordinate of our vertex, the same k value, have at it. I'm going with 0, -1. It's going to be 1. That's going to be 2 plus k. All you got to do is -2. And k ends up definitely being -3. And then all you do is put in your -3 and you've written your equation. And again, I'm not saying these are the only way to do these problems. It's just a way that I can show you. And you're done. And again, if the homework says that it has to be in standard form or simplified form, then you may have to FOIL this out, distribute the 2, and combine like terms to put it in that reduced standard form. Okay? All right. Does anybody have any questions? Are we okay? Yes? Okay. All right. So again, I know yesterday was a lot of information, but again, it is a parabola. I know you worked pretty heavily with the parabola in Algebra 2. So hopefully, again, it was nothing new other than maybe the whole increasing, decreasing intervals or the f of x is greater than 0, f of x is less than 0 intervals. All right. Guys, I'm going to stay on the meet if anybody needs me, but that's all I needed to go over with you guys to show you a couple more things. Other than that, you guys are free to start working on your homework. Stay on the meet if you have any questions for me. And then I'll just see you guys tomorrow, okay? I'll be here.